it's been a bit of a quiet start to the year, but it's all, just waiting for it all to happen, really.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to William Kircher a couple of months ago now, and he passed on your details to me, and because I said, any of the other dwarfs that he'd like it to pass on to me, and he said, oh, Stephen will talk to you. So, if you don't mind, I'll ask you a little bit about the films, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, totally.
How do you get into the acting, though, first of all? Because, I mean, you're a New Zealander, yeah, and you're based in Australia now. But so how come, when did the acting bug sort of bite? Because it's not exactly it's not a big tradition maybe where you grew up in terms of acting.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of I guess like a lot of small towns. I mean, like New Zealand's got a lot of local rep theatre and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in some ways like I've spent a little bit of time in Scotland, and New Zealand's like a little Scotland.
Really. It is, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
It's like a lot of the traditions and a lot of the education system, and there's a lot of things that are very similar.
Yeah.
So I started at school. I just started doing school plays when I was in third form, which was first year of high school.
Yeah.
I know it's all changed. It's changed in Australia. It's changed in New Zealand now too. But so yeah, I just did shows really early on. And then did, shows outside of school as well. And I think in my last year of high school, I don't think my academic achievements were very low. I think during most of my exams I was at the pub, but I did find time to do lots of shows. So yeah, I was doing lots of local stuff, and then I got into radio for a long time.
Yeah,
I did like 20 years and 30, or 30 now, because I still do little bits and pieces. But, and that sort of took me away from theatre a bit. And then I did a bit of amateur stuff. And it wasn't until I got an agent back in 1998 when I was living in Auckland that I sort of thought, I might give this a crack seriously. Left radio and decided to give acting a crack full time. So.
Okay, all right, okay. Am I right in saying that you actually auditioned for the original Lord of the Rings trilogy? Is that correct? Did I read that somewhere that you went originally when it first started casting?
Yeah, it would have been. I would have only been with my agent for maybe a year or two by that stage, and I seem to remember there was some scene in the Green Dragon or the Prancing Pony or something like that where they were talking about talking about hobbits and adventures or something. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But obviously it wasn't that good because nothing came from it. But so that was the first time. And I was desperate to get on, and I said to my agent, "Look, I'll be an extra." And she goes, "No, you won't. You're not going to be an extra. Otherwise, you'll get pigeonholed into extra work." So I was like, so I had to wait, and then I moved to New Zealand, and I really, I hadn't had much to do with my agent, Odd Management, and Liz for a while. We keep in touch, and when I come to New Zealand, I just pop in and say hi. And then I was like, I think we should hook up and try and get this, because I had my agent at the time in Sydney, in Australia, would have put me up, and I know she did put me up for roles, but it's a bigger pond over here, I knew I had a lot better chance of being cast out of New Zealand, just sheer weight of numbers.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Yeah.
Had you read the book, The Hobbit, or before actually applying for the part? Was it something that you'd actually read beforehand?
Yeah. Yeah, like I think I read it when I was younger, and then when I heard they were doing The Hobbit, I read it again, and then I remember we were on a baby moon before our daughter was born. We were in like an Uluru, way up in by Alice Springs, and I took the book there, and I remember sitting out by the pool swatting away dragonflies the size of your forearm with the book and reading it again. So I've read it a few times. I mean, although there are some in the cast, I won't mention any names, Aidan Turner, that probably haven't read it.
Yeah, well, it's just a pretty boy he is. It just gets by on his looks. That's all it is.
And then he gets more successful. He does this Poldark thing, and he just, he takes off. He is like a seriously talented man, and obviously he's got the looks as well, which made us all just want to punch him.
Honestly, God, I don't know what women see in him. To be perfectly honest, I mean, apart from the dark, brooding good looks, I mean, what else has he got? To be honest, So
yeah, and of course the character is that he's a smashing bloke as well. So,
I mean, I first came into contact with the book. I was about 7 or 8, The Hobbit, and it was read to us by. It was like a Friday afternoon thing that we had with the teacher reading it to us, and it was one of those things in my life that kind of changed my life. You know, it was. It was just magical at the time. And then I tried reading Lord of the Rings when I was about 10, and I couldn't. I was too young. But it was only after that when I seriously got into it. And so I wouldn't cast myself as a kind of, ultra Tolkien-esque type, nerd. But I am a fan. Did it concern you when you first landed the role that there might be... there was certainly... Because, Tolkien fans can be quite... vociferous. Did it kind of concern you at all, or did you never even think about what the reaction might be from fans and so forth?
Oh, look, it was in the back of my mind. I don't think any of us had any concept of how passionate the fans are.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, all my experiences with any Tolkien fans and all the conventions I've been around the world have been, incredible.
Yeah.
I've been to Germany a few times for HobbitCon, and it's coming up. It'll be MagicCon this year. I'm going to go to, and it's just such an amazing experience, and so I don't think pressure was more like it was like you knew that it was more than an acting role because you were stepping into a world where people had expectations, and I don't think we're under any illusions like the fan base and the reason why they they love coming to the conventions and the shows and seeing the movies. Has not a lot to do with us personally. It's to do with the world that we've been, thrust into. So I was aware I wanted to try and make the most of that character. And you have to make your own choices, obviously.
Of course,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, I never felt any pressure or anything negative. It was always very positive. And I always say to people who go to shows, like, if you really don't enjoy it and if you don't enjoy that fan interaction, just don't do it.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
It's only a nice experience. People are really excited to have you there, and they've only got great things to say, and it's just it's nice. It's nice little, you're back to your normal life, and full of other things. So it's quite a nice little world to step into.
So the audition itself, then, did you audition for? Was it specifically for Bombur that you auditioned to originally, or was it kind of like a general kind of audition that you did, and then Bombur was offered to you later on? How did that work?
I flew to New Zealand to audition, so I didn't audition in Australia. I flew to New Zealand, unbeknownst to them. They didn't realise I wasn't living in New Zealand at the time, and they were like, "Oh, we could have got you to do a tape over there with someone," but I was quite adamant because I'd never auditioned for these guys before. It was it was Miranda Rivers, but her and Liz Mullane were casting it, and Liz Mullane does all of the Jackson stuff, so I was really keen to get in front of them. And I think it's important because I had, relationships with casting directors here that I get to see quite often, but not lately in New Zealand. So I was determined to go over there and get a casting director. So it was a pretty good experience, I can't remember what the question was now. I think I've been on a bit of a
I just thought the audition itself. I mean, did you audition specifically for Bombur, or was it, as I said, a kind of just a general thing?
Yeah, that's right. I was getting to that. All the Kiwis who went in, we all auditioned for Gloin.
Right. Okay.
So there was a generic Gloin audition.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
And I think the feedback I got was that Gloin was a bit too glum for me. Obviously, Pete Hamilton played him brilliantly. And my audition was a bit bouncier, and I had my hair long, and I had like this costume. My friend had cut this shirt I actually did we did this run in Sydney called City to Surf, and it's like 14 k's from the city to Bondi Beach, and a mate of mine, Nigel Saunders, he's originally from Kent, and he's always keen, and he wants to get running. Be great, we'll have a bait and egg roll first, and we'll get out of there, And brilliant guy, and so we did it 2 years in a row, and we created these part costumes. So of course he wanted to be William Wallace, so that's cool. I mean, I was like, I was the Brendan Gleeson character, I was Hamish, and I had my face painted blue. And it's when I first sort of met my partner, and she rocked up to this run, and she had no idea what I was doing, and I was just dressed up, and you know, and then so I used that costume
right.
for the audition. So it was pretty rugged and here, and I remember stepping into the audition and Marie goes, "How you going?" And I had my jacket. She goes, "Oh, and I took my jacket off, and she went, "Oh," and I thought, "It's either really good or really bad." And I did 2 takes, and that was it. And then I didn't hear anything for 3 months, and then I got a phone call with an offer to play Bombur. So
I mean,
pretty much.
Yeah.
I
mean, there's a similar story to William Kircher, because he said the same sort of thing. That it took a while for him to be told, and he said that when he got the call, it was kind of like a mixture of complete shock and winning the lottery. Kind of, it's like, because whether or not things are ever going to be the same again, or whether or not things just go back to being completely normal, like you say, intermixed with all these cons and everything else. I mean, in terms of once the filming started, then you were kind of thrown together. I take it there's a boot camp, and you're kind of like a dwarf boot camp. How did that work? Was it an instant kind of bonding, or did it take a little while, or was there a bit of rivalry going on there, or what sort of stuff?
Oh, look, it took a little bit of a while to feel her out, I guess, because we'd never met, these people before, and it was kind of cool in a way because, and our boot camp was extended because Pete got very, very ill,
right.
And production was delayed for a month, so we had an extra 4 weeks, and Richard was, charging around, taking us out on training. There was injuries even before we started filming.
Yeah.
I popped a calf muscle and did all sorts of things, and so we spent a lot of time together, and we slowly got to know each other. And then by the time we got into Bag End, of course, we had known each other a little bit, but then we sort of continued to learn and to learn about each other. But it was kind of good because the film was shot chronologically.
Yeah.
Well, the films, we thought it was 2 originally, but then it was 3 right at the very end, and then so I guess in a journey you'll get to know people more and more. So that was kind of good. I mean, I obviously latched on to Jimmy quite a bit, Jimmy Nesbitt, because he was playing my brother, So I thought, well, I probably should, And he, Jimmy's a very charismatic guy. He's fun to be around.
Yeah.
He loves his rugby like myself, loves his wine like myself, and we had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, talk about the rugby. I should be heading down to Murrayfield in a couple of days because it's the England-Scotland game. So
really?
Calcutta Cup. It's Six Nations over here at the moment. So
yes,
that's going to be great.
I'll smash them for us, will you, please? As an All Black fan, please. Just Scotland's been great. I mean, living in Australia, it's always wonderful to watch Scotland beat Australia, which they have done on numerous occasions over the last few years.
It was almost
Scottish Sevens team's very good as well.
Yeah, I mean Scotland almost pushed the All Blacks pretty close a few months ago. I mean, it was a close run thing.
Yeah, well, I used to go out with a Glaswegian very, very briefly, and remember going over there and then having a phone conversation from the Bondi Hotel, and it was obviously late at night for me, and she was just like, there was just the language that came from that lady talking about cheating, all sorts of stuff. So very passionate. But I'd always wanted to go to Murrayfield. It was, it's always a.
It's great now. Yeah. It's really changed over the years. It's a beautiful stadium now, and it's incredibly atmospheric, especially for the Calcutta Cup games, the England-Scotland games. Just something special. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
In terms of the filming and so, when I watched the film, I mean, I love the films, and I know there was a few people that suggested, "Oh, why is it 3 films?" And it was the book was only quite a short, but there did seem to be a wee bit. Maybe I'm totally wrong in this, but a little bit of you guys kind of making sure that you were seen in the thing. Was there a feeling that I've got to make myself seen? Because you're part of a big group, so. Were there moments when you would do something just to make sure it kind of maybe was picked up on camera?
Well, you've talked to the king of that. You've talked to Kircher.
Yeah.
That was his philosophy, which had mixed reactions. But I think he believed that everyone else was doing it, but I don't think we were. I think that was something that he chose to do.
Yeah.
And he got in the film quite a bit. So
yeah.
But it was like being at school.
Yeah.
And if someone sticks their head out or tries to do something, then we'll just knock it back into shape again. But as far as I was concerned, like my character was so large physically, I really didn't have to do too much.
Yeah.
So I didn't really worry too much about that. And with Pete, he was always going to make sure that each character was memorable. So he was going to. It's up to the director really to choose your moments.
Yeah.
I just think you just have to do. Just like for me, it was about just staying alive and making sort of choices and just doing real things.
Yeah.
And then if I got up, and because there's a lot of things you don't see, but you just know that the whole background's alive, and I think that's really important, especially in an ensemble. And
how did you manage with because it was a kind of fat suit that you wore, wasn't it? Obviously, and the prosthetics as well. I mean, how did that whole thing? How long were you in makeup first of all? Then, so how long did each morning did it take to get fully made up?
Well, to start with, it took probably 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And I had 2 prosthetic artists, and then they got it down to about an hour and a half.
Right.
So, I think in the end they just sort of pretty much threw it on.
Yeah.
Chucked the nails in there. It was pretty quick, but they got it down. And like mine was obviously I had the most covering. My whole face was covered. It was just my lips and some of my eyelids basically.
Yeah.
So it was quite detailed. There's about 5 pieces of prosthetics, I think. There's 4 or 5 pieces of prosthetics. But then you get someone like Aidan who had just like a little, it would take me half an hour to get my makeup off. He'd just walk out and just go, and then chuck it on again, and that would be it. But to get us on, and like I made the comment mistakenly to one of the prosthetic artists about, must be doing that compared to, all mine, and she just gave me a glare because the blending, you've got to blend it.
Right,
there's only a little bit of your face and the rest is normal, and there was a lot of work to do. But it was pretty about an hour and a half, and then hair was another half an hour, probably about half an hour, 40 minutes staggered. So we'd all walk into the breakfast room with like bald prosthetic head. And our dressing gowns on, just with our prosthetic heads, no hair.
Yeah.
Looked pretty crazy.
What was the acting? How did you have to change your style of acting then with the prosthetics? Did you have to kind of like exaggerate? Because I thought it must have been quite difficult to get across facial expression under all that stuff. So did you have to like exaggerate your performance a wee bit?
Yeah. It was like you had to be almost theatrical a little bit,
right.
Because people would say, more reaction, and we'd be like acting our face off, underneath the mask, and you'd be like doing all these movements, and it'd just be, that's all you get. So it's kind of a you have to punch through it. And then I remember one particular day I had a word to Carolyn Cunningham, who was a first AD. She basically ran the whole set, and she's also a producer, and. Pete was, because as you do, there's usually one person, there's usually a runt in the litter, and that was Mark Atlow, because he was so easy to please, and he used to, and like in saying that, he's also like probably one of the most talented actors, in the bunch. And Pete was, because Pete knew him very well, and he's in every one of Pete's, I think he's in Mortal Engines coming up too, and he was like, more expression, Mark, more expression, and he was just going for it, and you couldn't see it. And because we were out in the sun, and it was in Central Otago in the summertime, they adjust the level of the prosthetics.
Yeah.
And it was quite hard, so we couldn't really move. So there were a few challenges, but generally it was pretty good.
What did you think when you? I assume that you've seen the films. Can you actually watch yourself on screen? Do you get too self-conscious, or do you get too self-critical, or what? Can you watch yourself? And your own performances?
Yeah, like the first time I saw Unexpected Journey was interesting because all I was just watching for myself, and I was watching what was cut out. So I couldn't really get into it. And then the second time I watched it, I actually watched it a couple of days before some of the other boys came down. There was probably about maybe half a dozen of us, 10 of us that watched the first one, and I watched it right next to Pete. And it was really good to watch, but I was looking for a whole lot of different things. Whereas now, like I'll still look, and I watch it now, and I just remember where we were and what we were doing at the time.
Yeah. It must be difficult because it must be a shame that you simply cannot watch it, can you? Kind of objectively, like I say, I can imagine you must be watching that and thinking, oh, that's when we had that day or that problem or that cough that was broke or whatever it might be. Did you what do you think in terms of trying to be as dispassionate as you can? Did you think it was as you would have liked to have seen it, or would you have maybe have done it slightly differently? What was your own view of the actual films themselves?
Look, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's hard because you're very close to it as well. I mean, there's so much stuff that was cut out. I mean, it was a no-brainer to me that they were going to do 3 movies because there's so much shot. And, you know, in the book they say a battle ensues or whatever.
Yeah.
Glorious. And that's like, you know, that's 20 minutes. Yeah. So, you know, and with all the stuff that Gandalf does, you know, it's like...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it basically says Gandalf chuffs off for a bit and then comes back, and you know that's pretty much what it says, and it covers those things. And then we had the 125 pages of appendices that were read after The Hobbit for the Lord of the Rings. So there was that information, and I found out through the biggest nerd I've ever met on Tolkien, Stephen Colbert, and he said that like Tolkien was about to rewrite The Hobbit, and extend. Include all the other bits and pieces.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
Well, because they had a competition between Philippa Boyens, who's one of the producers, who was strongly believed to be the biggest Tolkien geek, and Stephen Colbert, and it was the mediator, or the quizmaster was Stephen Fry, and it was extraordinary. And all this stuff came out that even Peter didn't know. So. Yeah, like I think it was good, and when you look at the stuff that they've cut out, and and people are going to say, look, they took advantage because there's more money, an extra $1 billion. Well, of course, obviously, any business would do that, but it's hard to look at that one little book for some people and see 3 movies, but when you actually read between the lines and the story that takes place and all the, and I think that's a thing with film. You have to tell a story and you have to be true to the source material, but at the same time, it has to be entertaining. And I think it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
I agree. I mean, the sections where, like you say, Gandalf. I think Tolkien should have written Gandalf chuffs off for a bit. I think that would have been much better than what he actually wrote. But yeah, I mean, there are big chunks where it just things happen, and I mean, I've watched. They've been showing them again over on Threshold TV over here last couple of months. So I've watched all 3 again, and to be honest, they have. I mean, I enjoyed them when they first came out, but they seem to improve over time, and I think. There was a lot of resistance at the time. Well, a lot. There was some in terms of into 3 books, but I think that probably came from maybe the same people that thought The Lord of the Rings was, in terms of the adaptation, the things that were cut out from the original Lord of the Rings, no Tom Bombadil and that sort of thing. I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings book, and I like the adaptations, and I love The Hobbit. The book, as I say, it's one of my favourite books ever. But I also loved what they did with the films, and I think they will stand up over time, and I think people probably will come back to them again and again. And I think once this, people, like you say, have seen about the bits I've added, the bits were taken out. It will certainly stand up.
I think so, and it's always. Everyone was always going to compare it to Lord of the Rings, and like tonally it's quite different. Yeah. And like even the first movie compared to the last movie, the tone is completely different, and his style of writing completely changed. Yeah. It was very light to start with, and then towards the end it was a battle movie. So I think as he was writing it really changed. So it was kind of hard because it was never going to be like Lord of the Rings, but people wanted it to be like Lord of the Rings. I mean, it would have been interesting if Guillermo had stayed on because it would have been way different.
It would, yeah.
So I think we're blessed in a way that the way that all went down, that Pete took over and now they've got 6 films that you can see back to back if you've got a spare weekend.
I was going to say if you've got a few weekends or 2, yeah. I mean, what's the absolute best thing about being in The Hobbit, and maybe the worst thing about being in The Hobbit? Have you got 2 examples that you could give?
I think probably the best thing is just the friendships that I've made out of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm going over to Germany in a few weeks to see, there's going to be myself, Graham McTavish, Adam Brown, and Dino Gorman, who are 2 of my really close friends now. And I went over. I was over in May in the UK for a sci-fi that we did. It was at the London Sci-Fi Festival called Blue World Order. Yeah. And then I went and stayed a night with Jimmy Nesbitt. And I had breakfast the next day with Adam Brown, caught up with him, and it just seems like only yesterday. And we went through this huge experience, and we had a lot of fun, but it was also really hard work. I mean, we were in that prosthetic stuff for 15 hours a day quite often. And it was physically quite challenging. I mean, it was the best job in the world. You can never complain about it, but it was one of those experiences that we had that were just remarkable, and the time that we all spent together, and offset, and going out for dinners and like on location was just incredible. And I guess the worst thing is probably the flip side of that we don't have that anymore. And I remember for the first probably year or two after it finished, I was just I don't know, maybe it's depressed. I don't want to go that far, but there was a sense that my life had peaked, and that was as good as it was going to get. And in some ways, it's sort of had, because I don't think I'll ever have an experience like that before with a job. But arguably, like the roles, because of that, I got a really good agent in Sydney, and he sort of pushed me to do some really good things here. So I've had pretty better roles from an acting perspective now. And my body of work is a lot broader. But that experience is just And I remember going when we did our first trip to London, and they go, "Oh, look, there's going to be trips. You're going to go to all around the world for the next 3 movies." And I thought, we may be, but as it turned out, they only took a select amount of people, and they sort of split us up. But that first big trip when we went to London and to New York, and that was incredible. I'll never experience that again. Like, I'll never be able to get to stay at Claridge's again. That was ridiculous. People walking in with ties and like a collared thing for lunch, and here's me and Jed Brophy sitting there in our shirts and jandals and having a flat white, it was quite funny. So I guess that's it. I think that, I mean, just the people that we meet, and the time we had, and almost like a sense of loss. It was like a sense of, at the end of it, like we don't have that anymore. And I still think about it.
Is there any way that it could be regarded then for you personally or professionally as a millstone around the neck, or do you not even think that
Look, not really. I mean, like the only thing is, I've got my agent David in Sydney, is he keeps telling me, he said, well, look, when it, even like going to the States or getting other roles, he said, look, it was a great experience, but at the end of the day, we didn't see your face and you never said anything. So, we have to put the role into perspective. And because of that, like, I'll always have that, and I'm glad. It's like, I was going to say I'll be the only, probably the only Bombur ever, but depends what happens with Amazon with this TV series. But I don't think I don't think those characters will feature in it. But I'm just guessing. But I think it's great that we'll always have that. It's always going to be a memory, and I've got I've got a couple of statues of I've got the Bombur running statue, and Weta's sending me the barrel one as well, and I've got a bit of armory and all sorts of things. So it's in a good way. Like, I came back from Sydney. I came back to Sydney from Wellington, and we did all these massive premieres. And I think it put it into perspective. Like, we've been to New York and London, and just been been to Times Square and on VH1 and all these sort of shows. And then I come back here for the local actor awards, which are a really big deal in Australia. Walked down the red carpet, no one knew who I was. I was like, okay. And it's kind of good, because you'll walk down the street and never. Or hard to recognise. I mean, every now and then, the fans of Tolkien and the fans of The Hobbit will always recognise you because they follow you. And there's the odd time I've been at a bus station or a train station or just walking down the street and someone's come up, but it's quite rare, and it's nice because you don't get hassled.
You talk about the body of work that you've done. I saw you. I think you popped up in maybe 2 or 3 episodes of a fabulous series that came out. Was it about a year or so ago now? Wolf Creek. Is it Wolf Creek? Yeah, Wolf Creek, wasn't it? That I think you were in. Yeah. It was
Wolf Creek season 2. It's just been released in Australia in December.
And I think, how many episodes did you do? 2, 3 episodes was it that you did?
Yeah, I did a couple of episodes of that. I mean, a show like that, you tend not to do that many. people. I didn't want to give away spoilers, but people said, "Look, did you do season 1?" I go, "Well, you tend to only do one season."
That's a fabulous series. I mean, obviously, I think they made the film, or 2 films, I think it was, wasn't it? A few years ago now, I really enjoyed the series, and I thought again it's very violent, obviously, and it was a great ensemble cast. But it must be nice as well to be working in Australia, doing something like that, something homegrown.
Yeah, it is, and like I shot that last year, and that was released in December in Australia. I didn't know what the worldwide distribution was, but obviously it's out already. But and then I did another movie called The Merger, which was about AFL football, which was, I guess that was the vehicle, but it was based around refugees in a small town,
right?
And and how you can sort of make them feel welcome and all the prejudices as well, and so we spent a bit of time in Wagga Wagga,
right?
Which is they call the town so amazing they named it twice.
What's the best?
That was fun. That was really country Australia.
Yeah, yeah. What's the best work that you've ever think? You mentioned before that you've probably done better work than The Hobbit in terms of. What's the best thing that you think you've ever done?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think Blue World Order was pretty good.
Okay.
That was all post-apocalyptic. US accent.
Yeah.
I did a really interesting short film for the Lexus. They do a Lexus scholarship for short films. And basically they had, I don't know what the budget was, it was pretty big for a short film, but we spent 10 days in the East Kimberley.
Right.
So that from Sydney, it's flying all the way to Perth, which was about 5 hours, and then to Broome, then up to Kununurra, and then up in East Kimberley. And we spent 10 days doing a short film. And it was produced by the Weinstein Company, which,
all right, okay, yeah.
2 years ago it was done. I was like, hey, I've done a Weinstein. But, I've got to say, like, the producer there, Joey Horvitz was just amazing, and it was a really good experience. And I played an Irishman, and it was like an Irishman and his Parisian girlfriend, and he was, like, basically on a quest,
Yeah.
And it was interesting, and I remember being in Melbourne at a film festival, and there was a couple of English girls there, a couple of writers, and they didn't realise I wasn't Irish, which was a really good.
That's a nice compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. And like I've spent plenty of time with Jimmy Nesbitt, but the thing I learned is that the Northern Irish accent and the Southern Irish are like complete opposites. You always have to learn one to learn the others.
Yeah.
Like they I think to simplify it, in Northern they go moith, and and in Southern it's like mouth. It's like it's under and over. Yeah, so that was really good, and I did another show called Janet King, which was a police sort of investigative drama.
Yeah, and you've got something of a YouTube channel as well, haven't you? You've got quite a few subscribers.
Yeah,
I've done a few
reviews as well. And I did a series called Actors Talk About Themselves.
Yes, I've seen bits of
all
pieces,
the guys.
Yeah.
Well, like a lot of the guys from them, and that was always good fun, because that was just telling war stories pretty much. And I'm about to turn those into a podcast.
Nice.
Which I think I'll do more of. I think podcasts are very easy to produce. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do podcasts on my channel with my son, and it's just two guys talking about sci-fi and just nonsense. It's great fun. Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing it. What about the future then? What does the rest of 2018 hold for Stephen Hunter then? What's going to be going on?
Well, it's I'll have a trip back to New Zealand. I think a couple of trips back there. I turned 50 this year, so I'll probably head back and go on a bit of a road trip and see some people.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's quite ill, so I'll probably go and spend some time with him. And just like looking for the next job. Really, my agent wants me to get a long-term job. Would be nice, something a bit more ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I do voiceovers as well. I'm doing acting teaching, so I teach a couple of classes a week. And I do a bit of coaching. I've just sort of started doing coaching for auditions. So, like if an actor gets an audition for a role, you can learn it by yourself, but it's always easy learning with someone else. But in a town like here, like you may or may not have someone to do that with. So, it's all about finding, for this type of role, because like you start the year with nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing to play.
Yeah.
And you just have to keep generating and, finding new things to do, really, just to try and pay the bills.
Yeah. Listen, it's been an absolute joy to. I've been trying to catch you for a few weeks now, and obviously,
Yes.
I didn't know whether or not you were because obviously there was an issue when I sent you the email, and then I was like, I thought, oh, is he being a diva? Is he making me wait? He's making me wait to see him. But you've been really gracious and really patient, so, and it's been a joy to speak to you. I love the films. I love Bombur. It was just so good. I just want to say thanks for the time that you've given me. It's been a genuine joy, and wish you all the best for the rest of the year, mate. Okay.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
Stuart.
Thanks for your time, mate. I do appreciate it. I genuinely do. All right. You take care. I'll speak to you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye.